Okay, welcome back to the shop. And today, what we're going to be doing is looking at the wonderful world of card scrapers, and more importantly, how to sharpen them. These I find to be an extremely useful tool in woodworking, particularly when working with real wood. But you can use these on veneers, however, they are pretty aggressive depending on the hook that you put on them. So, if you are using them with veneers, be very careful because they will tear the veneer apart. So today I've got three of them on my bench. I'm only going to sharpen two of them. The other one, the smaller one, is fine, but just showing you the different sizes. So as I pan across here, you can see we're starting with the card scrapers. I have a burnishing tool. It's the Veritas burnishing tool. I have a set of diamond stones that I use for basically straightening and taking the rough burr off. And last but not least, I have my heavy file there that I use to basically 90 out the edge of the card scraper, and then a block there that I cut a curve into, and we'll go from there. So I will set up here and we'll get going. Okay, back we are. So as I was saying earlier on with the different uses that the different tools that I had out here for doing the sharpening or reshaping of these, um, there's two ways that I generally do it. So it depends on the size of the card. So I'll show you both ways, and then depending on what you want. So what I did here is I cut a kerf on the table saw into this 90-degree block of wood. It's pretty close to 90, or as good as I need for this job. This is just a mill file. There is another name that people call it, but mill file is the technical term for it. You'll see that used, it's generally called a B word. So yeah, you can figure that one out for yourself. So what I do with my mill file is I place it into this kerf. It sits in there pretty snug, isn't going to go anywhere. You can see how dirty it is. I'll show you why in a moment. Then you can take the card scraper, and what you're going to do is hold that against this base so it's at a 90 to the mill file, press against it, and just take that edge right off. It only takes a few strokes. That file's pretty aggressive. I flip it over, do the same thing again. If you're worried about these corners, you can take a little, and that'll probably put your teeth on edge, and that just takes off the super sharp edge. So now that's completely flat. The other thing that you probably saw sitting on my bench is this item. This is designed to hold card scrapers. Now, it doesn't work for me very well with this card scraper. As you can see, if I put them side by side, there's quite a difference in the size. This is quite narrow. This is a fair amount thicker, or wider, I should say. So this doesn't work with this for me very well. I could probably make it work. So what this is for, this has a narrow kerf in it. I cut just a plain 2x4, and I cut it on the bandsaw, put a very narrow kerf in it so it holds these blades pretty tight. And I generally push it down so it is true to the top and about 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch, in that range. You put it in the vise and clamp it down, and that will hold that tight. So now you can take your file and take that edge right off, and it's nice and tight in there. Like I said, it doesn't work this one. If I was going to do this, no, I can't get it out there. If I was going to make one for this, I would probably cut the wood narrower. This is a full 2x4. I would probably cut it a bit narrower so that there's more pressure applied to this. Because it's so shallow, when I put it in the vise and squeeze, this thing wants to rock back and forth. So like I said, I don't use this one. The metals, after it's a little bit thinner than this other one, and the same with the third one that's already been sharpened. They're a little bit thicker in actual thickness. They're a little bit stiffer. This one's quite a bit thinner, so it doesn't sit in that kerf very well. So again, what I do with this one is I just put my mill file back in there. I take this 90-degree, quick little run through. Same thing. That thing's all square now. Knock just some of the grit out of there. So now that these two have been brought back to a 90, I take my diamond stones. I actually just bought this a little while ago. I have been using sandstones with these. What with the sandstones, because they're so soft, when you run the edges of these over, like you'll see me do here in a moment, what happens is it scores your stone, and you have to keep truing it. So what I do is I put a little bit of lube on there. I put this on edge, so now I can hold that 90 degrees to it, and I just go through until I take off all the striations from the mill file on there. And this is holding it 90 degrees to my stone, so I get rid of all the striations on there, so that what'll happen if you don't remove the striations from the mill file on this, when you start to roll this edge over, you roll all those striations over, which cause almost like a sawtooth profile on it, right? So you don't want to do that. So I flatten this out and get rid of that. So now that edge is pretty good. I'm using 1200 grit on this side. I find I don't really have to run through. I mean, to be safe, you could do this and then move over one to the 1200. This other middle one is a 600. And that sounds pretty good. So I'm done with that, and my stone's getting a little dry. This is just the product that came with this. That's nothing special there. And now, because I'll have that hook on there from the mill file, I'm going to run this back and forth like this until I get rid of that hook off there. And the other side. So now that burr is completely gone off there. So now what we want to do is we want to bring that metal edge back over again. And this is where the scraper comes in, or the Veritas hone comes in place. I was using a standard hone for this. I like this one better. It's easier to use. It's one setup, flatten everything out, set your degree. There's a little item on here, you can use it to set your degrees of hook on there. I tend to use 5 degrees most often. So then this is now set to 0. All I do is I press this against it. It's sitting 90 degrees in there, and then I flatten this over. Moderate pressure, I'm not going crazy. 10 strokes, give or take. You can start to feel it coming over. Just do this on the other side. And there we go. It's starting to burnish that metal over. So now, like I said, this was at 0. I'm going to switch it over. So I'm going to go to 5 degrees. And now this only sharpens, or burnishes, I shouldn't say sharpens. It only burnishes one side at a time. So when you're doing this, you have to move it 4 times. So again, moderate pressure. I'm not killing it. And now I'm going to flip it over and do the other side. And then same thing on this side. And then this side. I lost count there. So now I can feel that hook on there. My fingernails will actually catch on it. And then, now that it's all sharp, I will take this piece of cherry, put it in there, and I'll actually move the camera here shortly. But now that this has been sharpened, You can see that it's taking the edge off. This one is the one I just sharpened earlier. And you can see the shavings coming off that, just like a hand plane. Like I said, pretty easy tool to use and sharpen. I really like them. I use them a ton. Both of these I use every woodworking project that I do. Fine touch-ups, anything where I have to get in there. A lot of times I'll use these if there's any tear out from my planer. I'll use this to correct it. Glue ups I use quite often, so these are both pretty heavy. This one's a bit stiffer. It's a little bit thicker and a little bit stiffer. I typically use this one for removing glue off panel glue ups, areas like that. I'll go in with this one first and then sand the finish afterwards. This one, again, a little bit thinner, a little bit more flexible. I use this for straightening up edges, anything to do with actual woodworking. The only time I wouldn't use these would be with any sort of veneered work. They're pretty aggressive, and if you went in there, there's a chance that you'll tear through your veneer like that. So I wouldn't use it on veneer. It's fairly aggressive that way, but any kind of weird grain patterns or anything that you're having trouble with, these are excellent tools. Highly recommend them. And I'll flip the camera around so you can actually see it being used and what I'm doing with my hands, and then we'll go from there. All right, we are back. As you can see from my hands, it is the same day. So all I did is I moved the camera over so you can actually see the wood and see what it looks like when they're sharp. So I sharpened this one when the camera was off because I didn't want to make you guys watch that as well. As you can see with my hands, when I'm going to use these, I tip this forward. I bend it with my thumbs. You can actually cup your hand. There's several people out there that cup and pull or cup and drag, like so. For this demonstration, I bend, you push, and you can see the shavings coming off there as we do it. So that's the lighter one. The heavier one, this is the Bako, I think is how you pronounce it. And then this is the, I think it's a Veritas one. The narrower one, this little guy here is the Lee Valley. This is, I'm pretty sure it's a Veritas. Yeah, nice curl. You're not getting any dust, or very little dust, which is a nice thing for if you don't like sanding so much because of the dust. For smaller jobs like this is really good. This is a piece of sapilli. And you can see that nice shaving that comes off there. And last. So yeah, really nice finish on it. It's sort of, if you've never used one, it's like using a small hand plane. They are hard on the hands. If I'm doing a lot of work with this, I generally wear gloves. I have just a pair of construction gloves I wear. It just saves wear and tear in my fingers. They do get hot as well. So when you're pushing and you're doing a lot of this, if you're doing a big panel, this metal heats up quite hot. You can do a neat little trick that does help. Like I said, I use gloves and I find that helps. You can put a magnet right on the blade there, and that's what your thumbs are riding on. And because it's thicker, it absorbs the heat and it doesn't all end up going straight into your fingers. So yeah, it's just a magnet on there will alleviate some of that. But yeah, so that's what today's little quick trip down the shop was. I hope that was helpful. And as always, if you have any questions or any comments or anything like that, feel free to message, put a comment down below, and I'll try and answer it and let you know and go from there. Once again, thanks for watching.